Black boy broke his arm to save an elderly couple. Their son in a suit knelt, said 3 words. The scream came before the crash. Marcus didn't think. He moved. 1 second, he was standing on the corner outside the grocery store, counting the few crumpled bills in his pocket, deciding whether to buy bread or save the money for bus fare. The next, his head snapped toward the sound of tires screeching against pavement. Sharp, violent, wrong. An elderly couple stood frozen in the middle of the crosswalk. The light had changed. The car hadn't stopped. Move, Marcus shouted, his voice cracking as adrenaline surged through him. But they didn't move. The man's hand clutched a cane. The woman gripped his arm, her face pale, her eyes wide with confusion. They looked like time had slowed just for them, like their bodies had forgotten how to react. Marcus didn't wait. He ran. His sneakers slapped against the pavement as the car barreled closer, horn blaring now, too late, too fast. In that split second, Marcus saw everything clearly: the driver's terrified face, the couple's helpless stance, the inevitable collision. No, he yelled, lunging forward. He reached them just in time. With all the strength in his body, he shoved the elderly man backward, dragging the woman with him. The 3 of them tumbled hard onto the asphalt, rolling out of the car's path. But not far enough. The side mirror clipped Marcus as the car swerved. He heard it before he felt it. A crack, loud, sickening. Then came the pain, white-hot, blinding, shooting through his arm like lightning. Marcus hit the ground hard, his breath knocked from his chest. For a moment, the world spun in silence. Then the noise rushed back in, shouting, tires screeching, footsteps pounding. Call 911. Are they okay? Oh my God. His arm. Marcus groaned, trying to sit up, but the moment he moved, pain exploded through his body. He looked down, and his stomach twisted. His arm bent at an angle it wasn't supposed to. Don't move, son, a shaky voice said. The elderly man. Marcus blinked, focusing through the haze of pain. The old man was kneeling beside him now, his hands trembling as he reached out but didn't quite touch him. You saved us, the man whispered, his voice breaking. The woman was crying, clutching Marcus's shoulder gently. You brave boy. Oh, you brave boy. Marcus tried to smile, but it came out as a grimace. You guys okay? They both nodded, tears streaming down their faces. We're fine because of you, she said softly. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Marcus closed his eyes for a second, the pain pulsing through him in waves. He wasn't thinking about heroism. He wasn't thinking about what he'd done. He was thinking about how he still hadn't bought that bread. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and worry. Marcus sat on the edge of the bed, his arm now wrapped in a stiff white cast that stretched from his wrist to above his elbow. It throbbed constantly, a dull, relentless reminder of what had happened. A nurse adjusted the sling around his neck. You're lucky, she said gently. Clean break. It'll heal. Marcus nodded, not saying much. Lucky. That wasn't exactly the word he'd use. Across the room, the elderly couple sat side by side, still holding hands. They hadn't left since the ambulance brought them in. Every so often, they'd glance at Marcus like they were still trying to understand what he'd done. Or why. You shouldn't have done that, the old man said suddenly, his voice filled with emotion. You could have been killed. Marcus shrugged slightly. So could you. That's different, the man insisted. Marcus raised an eyebrow. How? The man opened his mouth, then paused. He didn't have an answer. The woman squeezed his hand. What's your name, dear? Marcus. I'm Eleanor, she said with a soft smile. And this is my husband, Harold. Nice to meet you, Marcus replied quietly. There was a brief silence. Then Eleanor spoke again. Do you have someone we can call? Your parents? Marcus hesitated. No, he said finally. Harold frowned. No. Marcus shook his head. It's just me. The couple exchanged a look. One of those silent, heavy looks that said more than words ever could. You mean, you're alone? Eleanor asked gently. Marcus shrugged again, trying to make it seem like it didn't matter. It's fine. I'm used to it. But it wasn't fine, and they could tell. Before they could say anything else, the door swung open. A man in a sharp, tailored suit stepped inside, his presence filling the room instantly. He looked out of place in the hospital setting, too polished, too composed, too powerful. But his face wasn't composed at all. It was pale, tight, panicked. "Mom, Dad," he said quickly, his voice edged with urgency. Eleanor gasped. "David." He rushed to them, dropping to his knees beside their chairs. "Are you okay? I got the call. I came as fast as I could." "We're fine," Harold said, placing a reassuring hand on his son's shoulder. "We're here because of him." David's eyes followed his father's gaze. They landed on Marcus. For a moment, everything stilled. David took in the cast, the sling, the quiet way Marcus sat there, trying not to draw attention to himself. "What happened?" David asked, his voice quieter now. Eleanor swallowed hard. "He saved us." David blinked. "What?" "He ran into the street," Harold said, his voice thick with emotion. "Pushed us out of the way. Took the hit himself." Silence filled the room again. David stood slowly. He walked toward Marcus, each step measured, deliberate. Marcus shifted uncomfortably under his gaze. He wasn't used to people looking at him like that, like he mattered. "You did that?" David asked. Marcus nodded slightly. "Yeah, I mean, anyone would've." "No," David said immediately. "They wouldn't have." Marcus looked down, unsure what to say. David stood there for a moment longer. Then something unexpected happened. He dropped to his knees. Right there, in front of Marcus. The room went still. The nurses paused. Eleanor gasped softly. Harold's eyes widened. Marcus blinked in confusion. What are you?" David looked up at him, his eyes filled with something raw and real. And then he said 3 words. "Thank you, son." Marcus froze. Son. No one had called him that in a long time. Not like that, not with that kind of warmth. His throat tightened unexpectedly. "You didn't have to do that," Marcus said quietly, trying to brush it off. David shook his head. "Yes, you did, and because you did, I still have my parents." His voice cracked slightly. "You have no idea what that means." Marcus swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. David stood slowly, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a card. "I want to help you," he said. Marcus shook his head immediately. "You don't have to." "I know I don't have to," David interrupted gently. "I want to." Marcus hesitated. He wasn't used to this. Help always came with conditions. With expectations. With strings. "What kind of help?" he asked cautiously. David smiled faintly. "The kind you deserve." Marcus glanced at Eleanor and Harold. They both nodded, their expressions soft and encouraging. "You saved our lives," Eleanor said. "Please, let us do something for you." Marcus looked back at David. For a moment, he thought about saying no. About walking away, going back to the life he knew, quiet, difficult, predictable. But something in David's eyes stopped him. Something genuine, something human. "Okay," Marcus said finally. David's smile widened just a little. "Good," he said, "because this isn't going to be small." Marcus frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" David glanced at his parents, then back at Marcus. "I mean," he said, "this is just the beginning." A week later, Marcus stood in front of a building he never thought he'd step into. Glass doors, polished floors, people in suits walking with purpose. He adjusted the sling on his arm nervously. "You ready?" David asked beside him. Marcus let out a small breath. "Not really." David chuckled. "That's okay. Neither was I, the first time I walked in here." Marcus looked at him. "Really, really," David said, "but sometimes, the things that change your life the most, start with moments you're not ready for." Marcus nodded slowly. Then, together, they stepped inside. And everything began to change.